Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are gonna study human nutrition. So let's begin. So first let's understand what is nutrition. So nutrition is the sum total of all the processes through which the food is taken in. That means whatever you eat, there are different processes which takes place like ingestion, digestion, absorption and utilization, and finally the undigested matter is eliminated outside the body. So the nutrition includes processes like ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion, which is also known as defecation. So let's see in detail what is this. So the first process, which is ingestion, that means the process in which the food is taken inside the body. Second comes digestion, the process during which the complex, non-diffusible and non-absorbable food substances are converted into simple, diffusible and absorbable substance by enzymes. Then comes absorption, so the process in which the simple substances get diffused into the blood. Thus, the absorbed food is now carried to each and every tissue cell of the body, which is estimated. Now, that means they are used. Now, what is estimation? The process by which the protoplasm is synthesized into each cell of the body by utilizing the simple food substances. That means there is formation of different types of proteins, glucose is stored and fats is also stored, and it provides energy to the cell. Now last process, which is egestion, the process of elimination of indigested remains of the food from the alimentary canal, that is also known as defecation or evacuation. So now let's see where digestion takes place. So in humans there is a developed alimentary canal in which the digestion takes place. So the first is mouth, which is followed by esophagus, then comes the stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and the finally comes leads to anus. So now let's study each part in detail. So first let's remember this graph. So human digestive system consists of alimentary canal and accessory glands. So alimentary canal, first comes mouth, then comes the buccal cavity, which is formed of three: platelet, palate, tongue and teeth. Then comes pharynx, which are of three parts: nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx. Then comes esophagus, then comes the stomach, which is again divided into three parts: cardiac, fundus and pylorus. Then comes small intestine, which is divided into three parts: duodenum, jejunum and ileum. Then comes the large intestine, which is again divided into three parts: cecum, colon and rectum. And the finally last one, which is known as anus. And there are accessory glands, that are salivary glands, pancreatic glands and liver. So now let's study first about mouth. So let's see first mouth. So the upper transverse slit-like opening of the alimentary canal, which are bounded by two fleshy lips. So this leads to large cavity known as oral or buccal cavity. So this leaf-like structure is known as mouth, and then this leads to buccal cavity. So buccal cavity, the space is bounded by the above part is palate. So this is a palate, as you can see over here. The sides are by jaw, that means teeth, and below is the throat. They support the tongue. So this is tongue, and the below part through tongue is throat. So it is lined by squamous epithelium and mucous membrane. So there is presence of tongue, teeth and salivary glands. Moving on to tongue. So tongue is a thick muscular protrusible organ, that means you can protrude it out, attached to the floor of the buccal cavity. The upper surface shows presence of numerous raised projections, which are known as papillae. As you can see over here, these dots are known as papillae. So they are nothing but sensory receptors for taste, which are known as gustatory receptors. So what are the uses? It is used for taste, mixing the food with saliva, and deglutition, that is swallowing. Now, next is the teeth. So present on both upper and lower jaw. The following terminology describes the teeth, that is thecodont, which means fixed in the socket of jawbone. Then comes the hyretodont, that means different types of teeth are present. First is incisors, which are slant shaped or for biting, cutting and sawing. Then comes canine, which are pointed, used for ripping. Then premolars for grinding, and molars are also used for grinding. Then comes diphylodont. Teeth appears twice during the lifetime. Deciduous, that means the milk teeth, which are 20 in number. So incisors are 2 on upper and lower side. Then comes the canine, which are also present on upper and lower sides. Then premolars, which are absent, and then comes the molar, which are on upper and lower side. And permanent teeth are 32 in number. 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 premolars, and 3 molars. Now there are three important salivary glands, that is first one is the submandible gland, as you can see over here. Then comes the sublingual gland, and the third one is the parotid gland. So these are the three important glands. After mouth comes pharynx. So pharynx is divided into three parts. The upper part, which is known as nasopharynx, the lower middle part, which is known as oropharynx, which is behind the buccal cavity, and the last one, which is known as laryngopharynx. Now this laryngopharynx is divided into two. So the first is glottis. This part is known as glottis, as you can see over here, which leads to trachea, that is the windpipe, and the second part, which is gluteal, which leads to esophagus. This is gullet, which leads to esophagus, that is food pipe. Now moving on to the esophagus. So it is a 25 centimeter long narrow muscular tube connecting the pharynx to the stomach. So it is lined by stratified squamous epithelium and contain mucus gland. The food moves through the esophagus due to rhythmic contraction of the longitudinal and circular muscle, that is smooth muscles, and this movement is nothing but known as peristalsis. Esophagus leads to stomach. So stomach is a sac-like J-shaped structure which is 25 to 30 centimeter long. It is formed of cardiac part, fundus part, body part, and pylorus part. Now there are two sphincter attached. So first is esophageal sphincter and second is pylorus sphincter. Esophageal, or which is also known as cardiac sphincter, prevents regurgitation of food back into the buccal cavity, and pyloric sphincter regulates the passage of food into the duodenum. Now what's the function of stomach? So stomach churns the food, that is it breaks the food into smaller pieces, which regulates the mixing of food with the gastric juice. Moving on to the small intestine. So stomachs open into small intestine. It is the longest part of digestive system. It is 6 centimeter long and 2.5 centimeter broad. It is compact coiled in the abdominal cavity. It's a coiled structure which are held together by the connective tissue called as mesenteries, supporting the blood vessels, lymph vessels, and also the nerves. Now small intestines are divided into three parts. The first part, which is known as duodenum, it is a U-shaped structure about 25 centimeter long. Bile duct and pancreatic duct open into the duodenum. Second part is jejunum. It is 2.5 meter long and narrower than duodenum. And the last part, which is known as ileum, it is the lowermost part. It is 3.5 meter long and opens into large intestine. Now, small intestine opens into large intestine. It is 1.5 meter long, arranged around the mass of small intestine in the form of mark shape, like this question mark shape, as you can see over here. Now the first part, which is known as cecum. So this is a cecum, as you can see this part. It is a small blind sac of the colon present at the junction of ileum and colon. So this is the ileum, which is the last part of small intestine, and from here colon starts. So it is a junction between the ileum and colon. At the junction, there is a ileocecal valve that regulates passage of substance from the small intestine to large intestine. Cecum bears a small worm-like vestigial organ which is known as appendix. As you can see over here, this is an appendix which is non-function in humans. Then comes the colon, which is divided into three parts. First is ascending colon, then transverse colon, and then comes the descending colon. Now this descending colon ends into rectum. So rectum, it is a posterior region about 15 to 35 centimeter long. The rectum has longitudinal folds and large blood vessels. The undigested matter called as fecal matter is temporarily stored before egestion. That means before defecation, it is stored over here. The last part, which is anus, so the rectum opens to the outside by opening called as anus. It is guarded by sphincter. It removes undigested material outside by the process which is known as defecation. Now let's study the histology of alimentary canal. Histology is nothing but study or structure and arrangement of tissues, or you can also say the covering of the alimentary canal. So how they are formed. So the outermost covering is serosa layer, which is protective layer. The outer layer is made up of squamous epithelium and the inner layer is made up of connective tissue. Now moving on to the another layer inner to serosa is the muscular layer. It also contains three types of muscles. The outer one is known as longitudinal muscles, the middle one contains circular muscle, and the inner one contains oblique smooth muscles. Now this muscle layer is the thickest part responsible for churning movement of the stomach. Now inner to the muscle layer there is submucosa layer, which contains connective tissues containing blood vessels, lymph and nerves, and it supports the innermost layer, that is the mucosa. Now mucosa layer, the innermost layer which is thrown into fold, which is known as rugae. As you can see over here, it is thrown into folds. It is made up of three parts: muscularis mucosa, lamina propria and epithelium. Now musculosa mucosa, it is a prominent and formed of outer longitudinal and inner circulatory muscles. As the name suggests, muscles, muscularis, that means muscles are present. Then comes lamina propria, it contains gastric glands, and the epithelium, which is columnar and folded to form gastric glands. Now let's see the arrangement of the gastric glands. So these are the simple tubular branched or unbranched glands embedded in the lamina propria, that means in mucosa. Each is made up of three types of cells. So the first is mucus cell, second is parietal cell, and third is chief cell. So this gland or the surface is divided into three parts, as I told you in last slides that mucosa are thrown into ragae, that means they have folds. So these are the folds. The first part, which is known as pit, then comes the neck, and the last part, which is known as the body. Now the pit contains mucus cells, mucus neck cells are present over here. Below it there is presence of parietal cells, so they secrete dilute HCl and intrinsic factors which are necessary for absorption of B12. Then below them contains chief cells. They are pyramidal shape, present deep in the base of the glands and secrete enzyme which is known as pepsinogen. Okay, so the mucus cell secretes mucus, parietal cell secretes dilute HCl, and the chief cell secretes enzyme pepsinogen. So till now we saw the parts of alimentary canal. Now let's see about the second half, which is accessory glands. So salivary glands, which are of three types: parotid, sublingual and submandibular. Then comes the pancreatic glands, the exocrine part, and the last one is the liver. Now first let's see about the salivary. So salivary gland, as I told you, there are three types: sublingual glands, submandibular gland, and parotid glands. The salivary gland has two separate types of secretory cells. Serous cells produces watery fluid containing enzyme salivary amylase, and mucus cell which produces mucus. It binds the food and makes it slippery so that it can be easily swallowed. Now let's see the second part of accessory gland, that is liver. So it is the largest gland of the body. It is reddish brown in color, weight about 1.5 kgs in adult, located on the right side just below the diaphragm. So this is like a triangular surface or triangular organ with two lobes. It produces bile juice which gets stored in the small bag-like structure which is known as gallbladder. So as you can see over here, this structure which is known as gallbladder. Now the functions of liver are: so liver secretes bile which emulses fat, that means it digests fat and makes the food alkaline. So it also makes the food alkaline. It stores excess of glucose in the form of glycogen, which is used during starvation. In liver, excess amino acids are converted into ammonia by the process called as deamination. It synthesis vitamin A, D, K and B12. Proteins like blood proteins like prothrombin and fibrinogens are found in the liver. It produces blood cells during early development, thus working as an hemopoietic organ. That means RBCs are produced and Kupffer cells digest old RBCs. So main function is it secretes bile and it stores glycogen and it makes the food alkaline. Now let's see about pancreas. So it is a leaf-like structure which is present between stomach and duodenum. So this is the stomach and here the duodenum, and in middle lies the pancreas. It's a mixed gland because some of the part is exocrine in function, that is it's secreted by the ducts, while the other parts are endocrine, that is its secretion are directly poured into the bloodstreams. Now let's see what are the exocrine plant. So exocrine is made up of pancreatic lobules called as acini. They are flask shaped and form a single layer of large columnar pyramidal shaped cell. This secretes pancreatic juice. This juice are alkaline in nature and the pH is 8.8. About 1 liter of pancreatic juice is secreted every day. Now let's see the endocrine plants. So they are known as islets of Langerhans. The cells are known as islets of Langerhans. There is alpha cells which secretes glucagon, beta cells which secretes insulin, and delta cells which secretes somatostatin. Now let's see the physiology of digestion. So there is physical change plus chemical change. So physical change is breaking up of food into the smaller finer particles through mastication, churning, and then comes the peristalsis movement. Now the chemical changes are brought up by the actions of different enzymes. The food eaten is insoluble and it cannot become a part of our body. The food undergoes many physical and chemical changes so that it is converted into simple soluble absorbable form. This is absorbed into the mucosa cell of the alimentary canal and thus diffuses into the bloodstream. Okay, so insoluble gets converted into soluble and then it can diffuse into the blood capillary. So let's see how is the process takes place. Now let's see the digestion in buccal cavity. So the first process of digestion takes place in buccal cavity, that is mouth. So mastication with breakdown of food into the smaller particles with the help of the teeth. Now tongue mixes the food with the saliva which is secreted by the salivary glands. Now the saliva contains salivary amylase or thylline which converts starch which is polysaccharide into maltose which is disaccharide. Now the bolus is formed which is pushed into the esophagus by the action of the tongue. So the tongue presses against the palate and pushes the bolus into the esophagus. This is known as swallowing or deglutination. Now, when the food or the bolus reaches into the stomach, digestion takes place in stomach. So there is gastric secretion. So it secretes three main enzymes. First is HCl, second is pepsinogen, and third is mucin. Now, what does HCl does is it stops the action of salivary amylase, which was present in the food when food was present in buccal cavity. Salivary amylase was released. Now provides as acidic medium requires to convert inactive pepsinogen to active proteolytic enzyme, that is pepsin. It kills the germ that may enter along the food. It helps to smoothen the food. Now the pepsinogen which is inactive in presence of HCl get converted into pepsin. Now the proteins in presence of pepsin get converted into peptones and proteoses. So this is the simple form of proteins. Now what does mucus does? Mucus and bicarbonates forms a protective layer on the mucosa of the stomach to prevent the action of HCl. There is some hormone which is known as renin, which is a proteolytic enzyme found in the gastric juice of infants which helps in digestion of milk. Now after digestion in stomach, the food is converted into semi-solid mass which is called as chyme. Acidic chyme travels into duodenum through the pyloric sphincter. Now let's see the digestion in small intestine. So in small intestine, three hormones play an important role. From liver, bile comes. From pancreatic juices comes, and from intestine juices comes. Now food in duodenum is known as chyme because chyme is the processed food which is semi-solid food which is formed in the stomach. Bile which is secreted from liver, so it neutralizes the acidic chyme. Bile juice is yellowish green in liquid. It contains water, cholesterol, most important bile salts and bipigments, and also phospholipids. So now bile salts, what does it does? It brings about emulsification of fats, that is break down the fats into very small messes. Bile also activates lipase. Now the bilirubin pigments, they give color to the fecal matter. Okay, so these are the two important bile salts and bile pigments. Now remember this for digestion of proteins. So proteins, which are the larger insoluble compound in presence of pepsin, which is secreted in stomach, gets converted into polypeptides that are nothing but peptones and proteoses. Now these polypeptides in presence of trypsin, which is secreted in the pancreatic juices, converts them into peptides. Now peptides in presence of peptidase can convert into amino acids, which is a soluble compound. So this is the protein process. Proteins, polypeptides, then polypeptides from peptides, and then amino acids are formed finally. Pancreatic juices secretes amylase. Amylase acts on starch to form disaccharides maltose. So starch, which is a polysaccharide in presence of pancreatic amylase, get converted into maltose. Then comes the lipase. So lipase, with the help of bile, converts lipids into fatty acids and glycerol. So lipids in presence of pancreatic lipase, which is activated by bile, converts into fatty acids plus glycerol. Then comes the nucleus. The nucleus in the pancreatic juices acts on the nucleic acid to form nucleotides and nucleosides. So nucleic acids in presence of nucleoside gets converted into nucleotides and nucleosides. Now there is also presence of trypsinogen, when presence of enteropeptidase gets converted into trypsin. Now this trypsin converts polypeptides, that is a part of protein, into a simple protein, which is known as peptides. Cryptinogen, which is also in presence of chymotrypsin or enterotrypsin, gets converted into chymotrypsin, and the function is same as the trypsins. Now let's see the intestinal juices. So it is secreted by the goblet cell plus brush border cells. So goblet cell secretes mucus, and this brush border cell secretes disaccharides, dipeptidase, lipase and nuclease. Now disaccharides are three types: maltase, sucrose and lactose. So now this maltase acts on maltose to form glucose, then saccharase acts on sucrose to form fructose and glucose. So sucrose is converted into glucose and fructose. Lactase acts on lactose to get converted into glucose and galactose. So galactose is converted into glucose and galactose. Now second type is dipeptidase. So acts on dipeptides to form amino acid, the simple form. Emulsions of fat converts into fatty acids and glycerol by lipids. Nucleosides converts nucleotides and nucleosides into simple nitrogen bases. So, as we saw in buccal cavity, bolus is formed which enters into the stomach, and when it leaves the stomach, chyme is formed in small intestine. Chyle is formed which enters into the large intestine. Now there is something which is known as absorption. So absorption is the process by which the end product of the digestion passes through the intestinal mucosa into the blood or the lymph. So it is carried out by passive, active or facilitated transport mechanism. So transportation absorption is by three methods, that is passive, active and facilitated transport. So passive, along the concrete concentration gradient, no energy is required. So water, short chain fatty acids, water soluble vitamins, etc. transport in them. That is by simple diffusion. Then comes the active one. Active one is against the concentration gradient, so the energy is required. So glucose, galactose, sodium and amino acids are the one which takes place through active transportation. Then facilitate transportation, so same as passive but requires presence of some carrier substance like sodium. So there is fructose, some amino acids are carried out through facilitated transportation. Now let's study some nutritional imbalance. So there can be deficiency or there can be an overintake. Deficiency means the proper intake of food is not present. So deficiency disorder affect the structure and function of the part which depends upon that nutrient, result in deficiency disorder. And if it is in excess, it can lead to animal fats, which has a danger of cardiovascular disease. Proteins can cause cancer of large intestine. Vitamin A and D excess may cause hypervitaminosis. So now let's see about protein deficiency, which is also known as protein energy malnutrition. So they are of two types. First is Kwashiorkor and second is marasmus. Now let's see what happens in Kwashiorkor. So it's a protein deficiency disease commonly affects in infants and children between 1 to 3 years. The symptoms of Kwashiorkor are underweight, studied growth, poor brain development, loss of appetite, anemia, protruding belly, slender legs and bulging eyes, edema of the lower legs and face, and change in the skin and the hair color may also occurs in Kwashiorkor. And now what happens in marasmus? It's a prolonged protein energy deficiency. It affects the infants under 1 year of age. Symptoms are due to the protein deficiency, diet, stored fats and tissue proteins are used as a source of energy. It impairs physical growth and retards mental development. So subcutaneous fat disappears, ribs becomes very prominent, skin becomes thin and skin becomes dry, thin and wrinkled. There is emaciation, loss of weight, digestion and absorption stops due to the atrophy of the digestive glands. There is no edema, which is characteristic of only Kwashiorkor. Now Kwashiorkor happens because of deficiency of protein, but starch is provided. But in marasmus there is deficiency of protein as well as carbohydrate, that is starch. Now the second disorder can be indigestion. It is a non-specific term that includes variety of upper abdominal complaints like heartburns, regurgitation and dyspepsia. So the symptoms are due to the gastroesophageal reflux disease. That means the stomach contents get into the esophagus and which leads to heartburns, regurgitation and dyspepsia. Okay. Moving on to the next disorder, which is constipation. So it is defined as decrease in frequency of stools to less than one per week or difficulty in defecation, which may result in abdominal pain, distortion and rarely perforations. So this is mainly due to the inactivity, that means lack of exercise and low fiber diet, etc. So you can increase it by doing your exercise, increase fluid intake, that is water intake, and increase dietary fibers in your diet. Moving on to the next disorder, which is jaundice. So it's nothing but yellowish discoloration of skin and eyes. So this happens because of problem in liver and bile duct. Thank you. Hope you like this video. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe and share your views in the comment section below. Till then, bye.